Welcome back to Season 2 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We are here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go! Nate Thompson started playing hockey as a young boy with the dream of making it to the NHL. And Nate did exactly that. Nate had his first drink of alcohol at 12 years old and things progressed from there. When he left the family home to start his junior career, he was drinking much more. Work hard, play hard. Nate's addiction to alcohol would progress to affect many areas of his life, and Nate struggled to feel comfortable in his own skin. Nate found hope from others that were living a sober life. Nate got out of his own way and asked for help. This is Nate Thompson's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. If you could use some extra support on your journey, no matter where you're at, starting out, 30 days in, 100 days, or 2 years, check out the Sober Buddy app. Inside of the app, there is a thriving community of other people that are willing to help. We also have 10 live support groups per week where we get together and we talk about what's going on and also the topic of the week. These groups have been incredibly powerful and the feedback has been phenomenal from what people are experiencing. So if you could use some extra support, be sure to check out yoursoberbuddy.com or download the app in your favorite app store, search Your Sober Buddy, and I hope to see you over there soon. How's it going, everyone? Brad here. Before we jump into this week's episode, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your support with the podcast. We're early on with this, but we're already making an impact. So thank you. Together, we can really make a big difference. Thank you for your reviews, thank you for your messages, and thank you for letting the people know who shared their story on this podcast that you appreciate them and the support you show them is incredible. Keep it up. Now let's get to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got Nate Thompson with us. Incredible story. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm well. Cold up here in Canada, but I am well. So we usually start the podcast off with just giving us a little background, what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Anchorage, Alaska. Born and raised there. My mom and dad are actually still both up there. Yeah, both my parents were in the medical field. My dad was a doctor. My mom's a nurse. I have a younger sister. She's about 22 months younger than me. And growing up back home was a good place to grow up in Anchorage. It was very family oriented. I was super into sports. I obviously started playing hockey when I was super young, about 3 or 4 years old. And, I think I was just full, as soon as I got into hockey when I was young, I was just kind of full on, I was just immersed myself into it. And that's all I wanted to do. Since this is a sober podcast, I'll get into a little bit of when things started to go awry, I guess. Fast forward, my parents split up when I was probably about 11, 12 years old. It put me in a tailspin. It was one of those things where I was at an age where I was very impressionable. I think also too, I was kind of almost playing the protector for my sister. So I was kind of taking the brunt of, the divorce, as you could say, with parents arguing and, things going back and forth and being put in the middle of it. And it was just a stressful time for a kid that's, 12 years old. And it was a tough age to deal with that. And I think for me, being so into hockey and, I was, as people know, in any, not just hockey, but any sport, the culture is, you party, that's kind of the culture, you work hard, you play harder. And when I was about, I was 12, 13 years old, I had my first drink. I had my first drink about 12, 13. And I didn't just have my first drink. I actually just, I got drunk. And, from then on, it was kind of like, oh, wow, I can mask how I'm feeling with this substance. And, it wasn't like I was drinking or I was, doing that all the time after that age, but it was, I guess you could say, fast forward to high school and, you get introduced to marijuana and you start doing that. And then I continue to drink. And then I get to the age where I'm about 16, 17, and I leave home. I leave Alaska. I go play junior in the Western Hockey League for the Seattle Thunderbirds, and that kind of was what really opened the door to it, where it really kind of just took off. At that time, like I said, it's a while ago, and people weren't really talking about their feelings, or if they're having a tough time at home, or they're stressed out, or they're anxious, or they're depressed. That just wasn't talked about. And especially in sports, especially in hockey at that time,
Mm.
it was just be a tough guy, and you don't talk about your feelings, and when we drink, you better drink. And that was kind of all I knew. And I enjoyed it, and it definitely did help me forget about all the things that were going on inside me. And I guess I could, keep going. And I turned 18. I was drafted when I was 18, the NHL to Boston, and I turned pro when I was 20. And things just, I guess I could say, as I got older, things just kind of like escalated just a little bit more every year, a little bit
Mm.
as I got more responsibility, as I got maybe a little bit more money in my pocket. I was introduced to this lifestyle that was a hard, fast-paced lifestyle, and that's kind of what I was accustomed to. I think because of that, because of me starting so young, and I was always a kid too, that I think from a very young age, that I was never comfortable in my own skin. I never felt like I was good enough, I guess you could say, and I think I had to drink or use to make that go away, to get like that courage, to do anything with anybody. And so, fast forward when I turned pro, and I'm in the minor leagues, and I'm doing my thing, and like I said, it's a way of life. You do what you have to do for the job part of it. You show up, you be a pro, and when you leave, I guess you can do whatever you want. And what I did was I partied a lot. As I moved up in the ranks and made the NHL, I guess, like I always say, it really just kind of took off even more from there, because now I'm making more money. Now I'm playing in the National Hockey League, and I have all these different things kind of at my fingertips.
Yeah, it's interesting too because done interviews with a few people, and you're like really successful. Things are going really well. So a lot of
Yeah,
other people shared too. They knew there was a problem, but why do something about it? Because I'm on the top of the world right now. So like things are working. Things were working in that sense.
yeah, and it's funny you say that, because to me, when everything was still working on the ice and in my career, I didn't think anything was a problem. Yeah, there were certainly things off the ice that weren't going well, whether it was my relationships, whether it was with my parents, whether it was with people. I mean, who knows what it was? I definitely did things, but for me, it was like, well, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, because my hockey career is going well. So why am I going to change anything? And that was my mindset. And it wasn't until a little further into my NHL career where I'm getting serious injuries and losing relationships. I'm losing a marriage. And I'm not getting to see my son at that time. And like all these things started just to like it escalated off the ice, where it kind of started to translate a little bit to on the ice, where I was, like I said, having major surgeries and being injured, and my performance was definitely, going down. And it got to the point where for a while it's fun, and for a while you think it's quote unquote cool, and it gets to a point where people are kind of looking at you like, it's not it's not cool anymore. You're showing up to different things, and or you're drinking in events, and you're making a fool out of yourself. And that's what I did. Showing up late for things, I'm missing practices, um, I'm just not doing, I'm not being a functional human. Even
Yeah.
though, even though in my head, I don't think I have a problem. I'm just, whatever. It's just, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And it wasn't until I had to kind of, go through a really, really tough injury a little bit later into my career, and where I kind of had to look myself in the mirror and realize that, like, I am not happy and I am not in a good place. I'm in a dark place right now, and I am to the point where I'm just like tired, and I don't want to do this anymore. But at the same time, like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And as you know, it's definitely something that I wish I would have learned a long time before that, where you're allowed to ask for help. I did I thought that was a crutch to be able to have to do that, to ask for help. And
Well, especially how, yeah, I can imagine you're brought up with hockey, right? Tough. You are a tough guy, I mean, physically tough guy, right?
yeah,
And other
yeah,
things as well, I'm sure. So to ask for help for something is probably seems so far out of reach. You didn't want to be that guy, maybe?
no, no, I definitely didn't want to be that guy. I almost felt like I was like, um and not giving up, but yeah, I guess in a way, kind of like conceding myself, like, where I'm conceding to this, and I'm not able to push through and figure it out myself. I think that was my mindset.
Yeah.
And I think I just, like I said, I got to a point where, losing relationships, and I had a very profound conversation with my mom. I think right around the time I um, made a fool of myself again at a wedding, and just, so I won't get into details, but it was a bad situation. Just put it that way. And I got to a point where I talked to my mom, and she said, my mom broke down, and she just said, Nate, like, I've been waiting for this day, and I didn't know if I was going to ever hear about this ever. I thought you were going to get to a point where you were going to kill yourself. And she's like, I've known that you were an alcoholic, and you had a problem from the time you were 16. She's like, I knew it. And there were things and there were red flags in my head that, that came up later, where she would take me to these drug and alcohol counseling things when I was, in my late teens, early 20s. And, to me, it was like, my mom's crazy. What is she doing? And, it took for her to break down, and she knew, though. She knew it had to run its course. She knew that after all that she tried, you can't force someone to ask for help. You just can't do it. It had to run its course, and it did. And I think that's where it was really, like, kind of the turning point in my life, when I just broke down. I just I think that I think for the first, however many days that I was sober, I think I cried almost every single day. I think, for the first at least 2 months, I was crying every single day. And I remember, particularly, it was always at night in the shower. That's where I would always break down and start crying, was at night in the shower. I was just tired. I was tired, and I had enough, and I was just ready to surrender to it.
Yeah, it's interesting how it has to take its course. That thing I
Yeah.
really that really sticks out to me, because a lot of people do try to intervene throughout, like, the journey of addiction, right? Like, stop, do this, go to treatment, go to rehab, go to counseling. And then it's like that journey has to come to a place. And it seems like the things off the ice started to obviously impact your play and your career, which you were able to maybe keep together for the most part for a while. So that's interesting how it all played out. What was it like for you though? Like, I'm just thinking, for me, it was hard for me to literally make my bed. I'm thinking Nate's over here playing on the big stage, going through this. Like, and like that must have been a very hard struggle in itself, because of the anxiety, the hangovers, everything that comes with it. Was there judgment from other people around you? Could you feel it? Did people say something to you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I had teammates come up to me and have several conversations with me, girls that I dated, girlfriend at the time, my parents, other family members, my sister. I mean, yeah, there were numerous people that brought it to my attention. And I honestly don't know how. I don't know how I was able to still compete and do my job. I think I was just so conditioned to do it. I've been doing it for so long that I was able to function. I was able to, practice hungover, play some games hungover. I was able to do it, and as you know, everyone's bottom's a little different. Everyone's rock bottom's different, and at now I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I look at it now, and I'm grateful for all those things that happened, because if it wasn't for those things, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be talking to you about my story and what I went through, what it was like, and uh, so it took what it took, and like you said, it has to run its course, and it has to. You have to you have to want to get help, and you have to want to be sober. You know, and you have to do it for you. I think that was the biggest thing. I had to do it for me, and there were times, and obviously during my run where, yeah, I would try and take 3 weeks off. I'd try and take a month off. I would try and do that, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it because I had some heat from family members, or you know uh different people in my life that were, maybe you should slow down a little bit. Maybe you should, just to take it back. I'm like, okay, I can do this for a few weeks to a month, and then that after those 3 weeks to a month, I would take off. It was pedal to the metal again, and it was just a constant, cycle. And you do the same things over and over and over again with no change. That's the definition of insanity. And I think that's the alcoholic mind is we're a little nuts, we're insane. And it took it, like I said, it took what it took, and I had to lose some things. My career was, at the time when I was getting sober, my career was on the teeter of maybe being done. I suffered a ruptured Achilles that I was out for a long time, and it was a dark time, and I didn't know if I was going to play hockey again. I had no idea, but I just I just wanted to be. I wanted to have peace. I wanted my mind to be quiet. I wanted to, I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel what I was feeling, and try and process it. All these things that we get when we get sober. I wanted those things.
Yeah, beautiful. I was thinking too about what you said there too, about you have to want to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
It's the truth, 110%. And I think maybe part of it, why it takes us so long to get there, is because we've just, like for me, I just didn't love myself at all, or love myself enough to really be willing to put in the work for so long. I just hated who I was. And like you mentioned before too, I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. It would just like felt like it was crawling 24/7, and so many other things. But it's really interesting. It seems like by beating ourselves up, by getting to that bottom, we somehow find a little bit of hope that maybe there's something better out there for us. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think hope. I think that was what I need. I needed just a little bit of hope. That's all I needed, was just a little bit of hope and something to grasp onto. And
Where did you find the hope? What did it look like for you?
I went to some meetings, and I went that route, and I think I talked to some men there, and you know I just immersed myself into that program. And I think once I could see all these other men that I was meeting, and um, see what they were going through, and see the lives they had now, and them being sober, some guys newly sober, some guys with years of sobriety. And I saw how these guys were living their life and they were doing it sober. And I was like, wow, that's possible. You can have fun and be sober at the same time. That's a thing. You can go and hang out with your buddies and everyone be sober and enjoy your life. And I think once I saw that and I immersed myself into it and I was around it, I think just by straight osmosis, I just kind of picked up on that, and it gave me that hope. I think that's what gave me the hope, is like, okay, I see other people doing this. Um, I'm going to follow suggestion. I'm going to follow what they say, uh, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see what happens. And they always say, you take it one day at a time. And to be honest, that's my mindset. I still try and take it one day at a time, because when I get into, well, what am I going to do in this amount, in a year, or well, I mean, I'm going to worry about what's happened a week from now, or all those things. Like, my mind goes, it's just not healthy for me. So that was the biggest thing I learned, is just, Nate, get today, be sober today, and we'll worry about tomorrow, the next day. That was a huge, huge turning point for me.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, that's so important, one day at a time, right? Because when we get ahead of ourselves, then we start, it gets squirrely, right? We
Yeah, oh
start
yeah,
getting
big time.
anxious, anxious and everything. And I'm the same thing, same idea. Just today. Let's just win today. That
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I need to do today. So that's incredible. So you got sober in October, right? What day?
October 10th, 2016. Yeah.
So what happened on that day? Was that the day after you talked with mom, or the day you talked with your mom?
No, I probably talked to my mom a few days after that day. I think I was just white knuckling it for probably, I think, yeah, maybe a few days, where I was just in a dark place. And I always say this, it was one of those things where, like, I didn't want to die, but I didn't really want to live either. And I think I just finally reached out to her and kind of just told her, listen, this is what's going on. And that's when she kind of poured her heart out to me and told me her thoughts and her 2 cents and what she thought, that I mentioned before. And that was it. That was kind of the start. That was kind of the start of it.
Yeah.
And she said, Nate, you need to go do this. Do you need to go to rehab? Da 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 da. And um, I was open to it. Um, but I think I was so stubborn at the time that part of me is, I was like, well, I'm gonna do it this way and see how it works out. And luckily, me doing it that way, it worked out. There's nothing wrong with going to rehab at all, for anybody. I think it's a great thing. It's just, like I said, everyone's path's a little bit different. And my path was the other route.
Yeah, no. Incredible. And that's a really tough spot to be in too, where you're not sure if you want to go on and you don't really know how to go on with it,
Yeah.
with life, right? Like you've kind of taken away something. I know it was for me at least, you take away something that really worked so well. And then after a while, you find out that it's not only is it not working well anymore, it's causing more problems, or it's causing all the problems that you're really trying to deal with and manage in life now are fueled by drinking more and, you
Mhm.
know, catching everything around us on fire. So that's a really tough spot. What did you have a like, was your mental health too something you had to work on throughout this whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. I was seeing someone. I was talking to somebody. I had a therapist. I was talking to someone, and then I think on top of that, and going to meetings and being around other sober people, I think that really helped me kind of, um, get my feelings out. Really, like, that was it. And because I think my mental health, part of it was obviously my drinking and using, but to be able to, get the things that I've been holding in for so long, to be able to get it out. Whenever you're able to get something out and put it out there, it obviously, you're not holding it in anymore. And I think that's where I kind of learned, like, okay, I need to do this every day. This is like an everyday thing. I need to, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be for me now. It's not even me. Maybe some days it's not even talking about my own feelings. Maybe I'm just in a weird headspace, and just simply calling somebody and asking how they're doing gets me out of myself, and inevitably fills me up and makes me feel better. And those are the things that I learned in the beginning that really have kind of helped me even till now, help my mental health in a big way.
Yeah. Kind of getting out of our own way in a sense.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
stepping aside and getting out of our own head and stuff and into, more positive stuff. So what did things look like for you when after you got sober?
Well, it was a long road because I was rehabilitating my Achilles, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise because as I'm rehabilitating my Achilles, I'm newly sober, and I'm trying to, work a program, and at the same time try and get better. And as I was getting sober, and I mean, it was no secret, things started to get better. Things started to get better on the ice. Things started to get better in my relationships. Everything around me was, there's no more chaos. There was no more, go home and shut the world off, and not deal with anybody. And I was able to, to be honest, I always say I was able to be a human being. Even I feel like I like turned into a man, even at like 31, 32 years old. I hadn't become a man yet. I was learning how to be a man. And I think, it was just for me, it changed my life. And like I've always told people, it's pride. I think it's my, yeah, I've had a great career, and I've, played hockey for a long time, and I've been extremely lucky. But I think my biggest accomplishment was that.
Did you make a public announcement or anything, or was this did everybody know, or was this something that you just kept to yourself for a while?
No, I kept it to myself for a while. I didn't come out with my sobriety till I had a year under my belt, and I thought that was important, to be able to get a year first. And I was very hesitant to be open about my sobriety at first. I kind of wanted to be private, but then I kind of realized that, like, man, this thing's bigger than us. If I could use my platform, or maybe another guy who's playing hockey, maybe someone else on the side, who knows, maybe a fan. I kind of thought to myself, wow, if I maybe if I talk about this, if it helps one person, that's a win. And that's kind of where I was at. It was one of those things where I just realized, this is bigger than me, and I'm going to be open about it. And I think it was the right choice for me at that time.
Yeah, incredible. Was there anybody you looked up to that had shared a story in any of sports or any of your life that you were like, "Hey, if they can maybe do it, like maybe I can," or would just went solo on this one?
I'm trying to think of, obviously I've seen different, different sports and athletes, but there was never really anything that really stuck out in my head that, where I was like, I want to be that. I think I was more focused on myself to make sure that, like I said, take one day at a time, do the things that I've been doing for whatever it was, a year. It was working, and it was just, what, I'm going to be open about this, and, hopefully I can help someone out in the process.
Yeah. Have you helped anyone out in the process?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've helped quite a few. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. No,
yeah,
I think so. I think anybody sharing it. I mean, we don't always necessarily know, but I think anybody sharing the story, and that's what this whole podcast is about, is sharing these stories. And I believe too, when we share our stories, that we can be the key that unlocks the possibilities for other people, like to maybe be the hope for other
yeah,
people to say, like, if Nate can do this and work through this, and being in the spot you were in and everything, then maybe it's possible for me or for other people. So I
yeah,
definitely believe you have.
yeah. No, it is. I mean, for sure. I mean, there was actually an instance where a friend of mine that I used to play with, was struggling, and we hadn't talked in a long time, and he heard me on a podcast, and we hadn't talked in years, and he heard me on a podcast talking about it, and Next thing you know, he reaches out to me through social media, and now he's almost 3 years sober. So, like I said, there's a prime example of just telling your story, being honest, being true to yourself, and you never know, maybe you can help someone along the way.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, you definitely will. Yeah, and every person too that you're able to help with your story is just so powerful, because
Yeah,
you're just helping somebody get out of that place that we all once lived, where when you're in it for the longest time, for me anyway, I never saw a way out. I never envisioned a life. And you might be able to relate to this too, but I never knew sober people around me. I knew people
yeah,
without a problem, but I never knew sober people that were thriving, that were living, that were enjoying life, and that felt joy. But once I experienced that, I was like with you, I was like shocked. I was like, "Oh, this is a thing? Okay,
yeah,
I have to check this out."
yeah. No, that was the exact thing with me. I never had any friends that were, or I never had people surrounded by me that were sober or that were living a sober life and thriving. I had no idea, and until I, experienced that, I was like, I didn't even know people did this. I'm sure you were thinking the same thing. I didn't even. I was like, this is, like I said, I couldn't believe that these guys could, you know, go to a bar, go to a restaurant, go on a date and not drink and be sober and have a beautiful life. It just seemed impossible to me, but it is so possible, and you can do it. Anybody can do it.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this though and they're struggling to get or stay sober, what advice would you have from your own journey?
I think just support yourself. I think the biggest thing is you can't feel like you have to do it by yourself. I think you have to be involved in whatever program you're in that helps you stay sober. Doesn't matter what it is, but if it works for you, it works. But I think for me, I mean, um, I just have such a big support system of other people in my life that are sober that I can lean on. And I think, like I said, I think you have to take it one day at a time because you know as you take that one day at a time, it's, then all of a sudden, you have another 365 days, then it's like, all right. And I think just being able to lean on other people that, like I said, that are in your life that are sober, I think that's been a huge key for me is being able to, maybe I'm having a bad day, and I say that to you all the time, just because I'm sober, and I'm sure you can relate, just because I'm sober doesn't mean I'm like in a great mood every single day because that's not the case. Like there are days that are bad, and then I like not a good person to be around, or I don't want to get out of bed, whatever it may be. But I think being able to stay in those fundamentals where those basics of um, leaning on, like I said, leaning on people in your life that are sober, or having a group of people that a group of friends or a group of other sober people that you talk to, or whatever, it's your therapist, whatever it may be that works for you. I think you just have to stick to that routine.
Yeah, no, that's incredible too. Community connection is definitely huge for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, me too.
Staying connected to people, and then also like I really like the part of sobriety as well, that like when other people are having a bad day, then I can be relied upon because I have my share of bad days, plenty of them. But when other people are struggling too, then I can be hopefully a resource for them. And when I was doing the stuff, I was not helpful for anybody. I thought maybe I was, but when I look back, like I was a terrible friend for people. So that's kind of another cool thing, is to be present and available to like be supportive to other people. I really
Yeah, for
enjoy that.
sure. I think inevitably, like I said, I mean, when someone's calling me or they need help, like, and after I'm able to talk them through it or help them out or whatever it may be, I get off that phone and I'm like, I'm flying. I feel great, and it's no secret. You help someone else out, it's only going to fill your cup up. So yeah, that's a huge thing for sure.
Yeah, incredible. Where are things at now with your career?
So now I am playing. I can't believe I'm still playing. I'm 38, but I'm playing with the Kings minor league team in Ontario this year. I have a beautiful girlfriend who's almost 8 months pregnant. We're having a baby girl in April. My son is 7 years old now, and he lives in Minnesota with his mom. But he's, he comes here too. He travels here, so my girlfriend has a 9-year-old daughter, so we kind of have a little bit of a blended family, and I'm still playing hockey somehow. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, life's good, man. I got no complaints. Obviously there's little things here and there that are whatever, but those are first world problems, and I'm able to get through them. So yeah, man, life's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Huge congrats too on
Thank you.
your
Yeah,
daughter.
thank
Yeah,
you. Appreciate it.
that's gonna be that's gonna be exciting to add to the family, to the mix, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think I'll get it. I wasn't sober for when my son was born, and being able to go through this time around, being sober, being present. It's almost like I'm getting a little bit of a second chance. So yeah, it's awesome. It's quite the journey for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. So the $1 million question, so we can place our bets on DraftKings. Who's gonna win the cup this year?
Cool. I think.
Don't say Boston.
I mean, it's hard for me to go against them. I'll pick Boston, and I think Colorado's getting back there again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That'll
I
be
think
good. That'll
Boston,
be a good match.
Colorado. Yeah, I think Boston, Colorado will be in the finals.
Yeah. Awesome. Speaking of the Kings, though, I'm a huge Carolina fan, and we played the Kings the other night. A big
That
comeback
was that was a
time
big
win.
win. Yeah, I watched
Yeah.
that game. That was a hell of a win. It was. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Carolina is a real good team. I just think they have to add. They need to add a couple things, I think, to really kind of get them over the hump. That's my take, anyways. But
So I'll put in a word. Do we need to add a Nate Thompson in there?
yeah, that'd be great.
Would
Thanks.
that put us over? Okay, I'll put
I don't know. I mean, I think I can help. I don't know if I get you over the hump, but I think I can help. Yeah.
it. That's cool. Well, I really appreciate you. I don't know if you had anything else, but I think that's great. I mean, you took us through the journey for you and coming out the other side and really giving back. I've seen some of your interviews and stuff, like really giving back and talking about this openly, because I know it's come out in the last couple years too, about especially NHL, since we're there, about this stuff is going on and we're not talking about it, or people aren't talking about it or feeling comfortable to talk about it as much as they could,
Mhm.
or they should, to be able to get the help. So I mean, I think it's incredible that you are. I've never been in that position. I've never been in that position, but I can see from the outside, being a fan of the sport, watched every game for the last, I don't know, 7 years that Carolina plays and stuff. I can definitely see that it would be really hard, could be a really hard thing to do. So I'm like, huge respect from me. I'm just a dude over here doing a podcast, but huge respect, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's. I think. I think our society, and I think in sports in general, I think we're going in the right direction. I think these are things that people are being a lot more open about, like you said, in the last few years, and you're seeing people talk about it. And like I said, I think we're going in the right direction, and I think you doing this podcast is a huge part of that. So I appreciate it too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think too, and I think the direction is interesting too, because it's more. I think at one point it was more viewed as a weakness, as like we're weak people. And when I think about it, the life I was living was, most people wouldn't survive it, and you probably can relate to yours too. A lot of people couldn't carry a full blown addiction in an NHL career, balance the two for however many years. That is not weak. And I think it's very strong for us to say, like, raise our hand and be like, hey, I have a problem and I need some help, and there's some things going on and I don't have it all figured out. And I think that that's true strength for humans. And I think it's cool how I see the narrative changing with that.
Yeah, I agree. I 100%. You're spot on with that. I think it's the total opposite. I think I always tell people, if you're asking for help, that is brave. That takes some serious guts to be able to do that. I think that's the opposite of weak. So I think you're spot on with that for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been a blast.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
Wow, everyone. That was an incredible episode. I hope that you all are going to enjoy it as much as I did. Nate really walked us through what it was like for him and his journey and what it's like for him now, and some great takeaways, some great strategies that you could implement into your journey if you're struggling or you just want to strengthen things up a little bit. As always, if you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to leave a review on Apple or Spotify, and I'll see you on the next episode.